And we have Eric Ortman from 4D Molecular Therapeutics. And so we're finally using the couches. I know you all have been wondering, like, what are the couches for? And it's for the three of us. But afterwards, you can come up and try them if you want. So welcome, guys. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to just let you introduce yourselves. First, I'm going to ask you to share a fun fact since Leslie shared a fun fact about me. So, Mike, I'll start with you.
Okay, so hey, I'm Mike Tamina. I'm the Chief of Staff to the Chief Legal Officer. I run legal operations over at Cohesity as well. Been there for about 3 years. What's a fun fact about me? Okay, first job ever, certified asbestos tester. Did that at the age of 16. My buddy's dad was an industrial hygienist, and apparently he needed cheap child labor.
Wow, that's amazing. So you need to find Mike afterwards and have him tell you some more about that. And the funny thing I'll just tell about Mike, like we're sitting over here like 5 minutes before we're on stage, and Mike's on a phone call, and he goes, "I'm not a lawyer, but I'm telling you, we got to put this clause into this contract." So he never stops working, is one thing I've noticed. Eric, how about you, a fun fact?
Hi, I'm Eric Ortman. I'm Director of Legal Ops at 4D Molecular Therapeutics, or 4DMT. We're a gene therapy company that's entering phase 3 trials. My fun fact, I'm a national parks nerd. I love national parks. I've been going to them since I was a little kid and was even a park ranger way back in the day in North Cascades National Park along the Canadian border, for those of you who are looking for something fun to do this summer. So,
amazing.
Yeah.
And somehow it led to you being on a stage.
I know. You know, I loved being, I love working in legal ops so much, I gave up the outdoors.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So Eric, how did you end up on the stage? How did you end up in an Ironclad journey? Have you worked with other CLMs in the past? Maybe just tell us a little bit about what you've done with Ironclad.
Yeah, sure. So I've been working in legal ops before it was legal ops. I've been doing this for decades now, and been working with contract management systems for a very long time. I actually built my own at some point on a low-code platform, but I've been a customer of Ironclad for about a year and have been really happy. You know, just also maybe a little bit about my journey.
Yeah.
You know, something that Leslie said at the beginning of the day, you know, I love contracts. I do as well. It sounds like, yeah, let's hear it for contracts.
There you go.
But it's actually something I'm passionate about. I've been working in this entire time in biotech, and it's a bit of a strong statement, but I believe that contracts can save lives. And there was a CEO that I was working at an oncology company. We made a prostate cancer drug, and our CEO was talking about a man who, he was the first patient to go into clinical trials for this drug. He had weeks to live, but it saved his life. And years later, he got to see his kids graduated from college, get married, and even have grandchildren. And when David told this story, I don't know why I thought about this, but I thought, it really resonated with me, because like behind that were contracts. There were clinical trial agreements to get the sites up and running, manufacturing agreements to develop, the drug, all kinds of studies. So if there was a good system in place, and there wasn't at the time, could that have been another man's story or several other people's story? And so since then, that's always been a driver for me.
Yeah. And, the business you're in is basically, I imagine it's highly regulated. There's a lot of scrutiny on what you're doing, but essentially you're experimenting and trying to come up with drug treatments based on gene therapy, it sounds like. Yep. The agreements, tell maybe a little bit about the agreements you're doing in Ironclad and the impact that they've had.
Sure. So right now, as I mentioned, we're spinning up phase 3 trials, a North American trial and a global trial. And the first step in any trial is to do what's called site feasibility CDAs. For a phase 3 trial, you have to cast a very wide net. You have to do several hundred, if not 1,000 or 2,000 site CDAs around the world. So right when I joined 4DMT, I was presented with this challenge. And frankly, outside of legal, leadership that was pretty skeptical of our abilities. How are we going to do all these contracts with our tiny team? And so partnering with Ironclad, and our consultants, we came up with a solution of using public workflows. And I think, that was one of the value drivers that was mentioned earlier. We hit it out of the park. We did, within the first month, several hundred site CDAs with no touch from legal. There's no way we could have scaled without that function. And it started this really great kind of cycle in terms of establishing trust with the business. Since then we've built a workflow for our phase 1 trial. We just got our first patients dosed a couple weeks ago, which it's a huge milestone. And we're building trust with the clinical operations team. They now see us as a strategic partner and not somebody who's going to hold them back.
Yeah, that's great. Mike, your business is obviously very different. You're talking about data security. It's still very important to making businesses run. So how does Eric's story differ from yours, and how did you end up here today?
Okay, so we're not saving lives,
Yeah.
but we're saving data. So when
You're
we
saving
chatted, I'm
data.
like,
It's
this is
still
going to be
important.
hard. It's going to be hard to follow up saving lives. So, when we first were looking at rolling out a CLM platform, right? I mean, we came from, when I got to Cohesity, we were email, moved over to an Asana ticketing. That's how we were doing commercial requests, right? Straight into Ironclad, which was pretty significant, right? As part of our launch, we rolled out our primary agreement, asset transfer, POC. Probably had about 6 or 7 workflows that we developed through the launch. I had an enterprise technologies team that was extraordinarily skeptical, came from a company where they rolled out a competitor, and had like PTSD from the CLM rollout.
Yeah.
Worked hand in hand with them. It was probably about a 4 to 5 month launch period. What we really said is like, okay, how do we drive deal velocity? How do we actually understand what's inside of our contracts? How do we look back at the historic corpus and get it in there? So we've got this mantra of how do we actually leverage our contract data for good outside of just being a repo. So, what do we do from an obligation management perspective? How do we, push data back into things like CPQ for quoting if we do price lock? How do we know if we do a feature commit, we push that into Jira for our dev team so we actually don't miss dates and have cranky customers when we've agreed to something. And there's several other aspects of metadata that we try to pull out. A year later, we're trying to do all kinds of kind of crazier things and chat about those a little bit as we kind of go through here. But on day 1 launch, we migrated a sales force of 400 people over to, hey, if you want to get to legal, this is how you do it. Enterprise tech came to us and they're like, we never thought we'd see in our lives a CLM initiative, and nobody was crying or in the fetal position at the end of it with, sales teams raising pitchforks at us. And they really took to it because of a lot of the automations, right? Directly integrated in with SFTC. We took a workflow from, 30 questions we had to ask our AEs down to 6 to do a primary agreement. Auto pull in of all the information. We automated based on what entitlements were a part of the opportunity, what parts of the PA would come in. I mean, it was a huge time saver for the team with visibility. It was kind of an all-around win.
What do you attribute, like the technology is a part of it, but what other elements do you attribute to success to? Like what are some things you think you have to get right to avoid the fetal position outcome?
So really good change management, number 1, right?
Yeah.
So we partnered up with our sales enablement team. We went out to their fast starts. We were in their Slack groups. We worked with the CRO and basically said, hey, help us help you. Like, tell your teams this is the way. They're going to complain. I like to joke that sales is like water. If there's a crack in your process, they're going to find it. So that's a big part of it, right? How do you actually work with those teams? We put champions up on stage from the sales team who did beta with us on how to use it. And it's a lot better if they hear from their peers versus if they hear from legal saying, you're going to do this now. And I think that really helped, was a big
so it's not just the technology, I think, it's for sure. There's all those elements that make it a success.
100%.
Yeah. In your case, like, do you have any thoughts on how that worked for you? And like, the other thing I wanted to dig in on was like that perception that changed from your clinical team about how legal participates in this process. Like, how did that change things for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm thinking about kind of the strategy that, when you're implementing a new solution.
Yeah.
How are you going to tackle it? And often you may be coming in as the first head of legal ops, and you want to make a great impression with your GC or CLO. And the temptation is to try and do too much. I've done things both ways where, I've implemented and tried to boil the ocean. And it's just a lot contract management systems are complex.
Yeah.
And your business processes are complex. To the extent that you can boil that down to a couple of early wins and then build off of that success, I think that's the better way to do it. I've done it both ways, and generally where there's been better success is to start with small use cases, build on that, gain trust of not just your legal team and your GC, but the business as a whole who needs to work in this system. And that's, I think that it's a good cycle.
Were there any metrics you used for that initial rollout, or that you shared after the fact to say we took something that took this long and now we reduced it down? Or
yeah, we were talking about it at the table earlier. I think the challenge there is because you're often working pre-CLM, you may be working just in email, and
so you don't even have a benchmark.
You may not even have the benchmark.
Yeah.
You may it's kind of like it's a guess, right? But it's helpful to have some type of measure, and then to be able to say, yes, we're doing things a little faster. I think the other thing that we really have tried to use it for is load management, just because our company is scaling, we need to do more and more and more. So who's got the most contracts? Where does somebody need help?
Right.
So to help you to kind of, it's not just looking at after the fact data. You need to look at stuff that's in flight so that you can triage along the way.
Yeah. So that's sort of the operational side, but then there's also once you have these executed contracts in your database or repository, there's like an element there. And Mike, you have some interesting ideas on why that's important to you. Maybe you can share.
Yeah, so so I've got a very engaged CFO at the company, who one day when I was sitting there, he's like, in my 6 top projects for the year, and for our quest to get to IPO, he's like, unified contract database. And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, that's new. I wasn't expecting that. So I get emails from him about every other week now. Hey, how are we looking on the migration? So we just acquired another company in the space recently that was significantly larger than us. So, we went from a company of having probably 40,000 pieces of paper, acquiring a company that has about 175,000 pieces of paper, a 40-year-old company. And we've got a charter to get everything consolidated, normalized, and all metadata extraction in the next 4 months. So inside the Ironclad repository, we'll almost be at about 200,000 agreements. We're extracting roughly about 175 pieces of metadata. We want to be able to essentially do full reporting on the whole corpus of, hey, what are they entitled to? Do we have clawback? What do we have from telemetry? Do we have audit right? What do we have to do from an assignment perspective? All of that tied back to the SFDC account. So we can basically do a full triangulation on every single one of the customers that we have in the environment. And this from the CFO is like, this is a top priority for us to be financially stable, understand our corpus, our obligations. And then again, that ties back to some of the pieces where we want to start pushing this information upstream as we consolidate the rest of the ecosystem. We only closed this deal back in December. So it's a pretty significant piece of work.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to actually have executive leadership. Most of the time, CFO doesn't really care about what's been executed, or a lot of the execs don't care about the paper once it's signed and you've made the deal and the sale, right? It's like all about deal velocity. But really actually starting to use your contracts as real information to support the business is really cool. I haven't had that experience before in my life.
Yeah.
And it's not an insignificant piece of work. It's actually more pressure than I thought it was going to be to try to do it in the timeline. But I think that's another story that everybody can tell here, right? There's more that you can do with the contracts. There's a way to take the CLM and actually make it a source of truth and a repository as a push versus kind of a pull, whether you're using SFDC, CPQ, or some type of those other information. Like partner up with your DMT teams or deal management teams, partner up with sales ops, partner up with the RevRec teams, which is kind of what we've done, and we've brought them into the platform. So now it's legal sitting on what's considered a tier 1 application, which at most companies, it's just kind of like, oh, that's kind of cute, legal's rolling out some software.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable to me that, CFO has their attention, because and I think it sort of demonstrates where CLM is going in general, of like, that data is so valuable, and the opportunity there for revenue and all those things. In your case, I imagine, like, maybe how do you think about that data? Maybe it's more from a compliance and risk standpoint, or like, how do you think about the data for those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree. I mean, I'm not tracking 175.
Yeah. It's okay.
I wasn't either.
You're still saving lives, though. So that's
you're saving lives.
Yeah. But that is, I'd like to learn more about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, being able to trust, to be able to trust the data in the system, and then to represent that to senior management, to your CFO from a SOC standpoint, I mean, that's just incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Sometimes the data that comes in, let's just be honest, is there can be issues. So to the extent that you also have a system that can analyze contracts, that can help, auto-populate certain fields and things like that, using AI, I mean, it's just incredibly powerful. So, there's trust but verified, but it's critically important.
Yeah, so thanks. We'll shift gears a little bit, and your titles are Director of Legal Ops. I know you wear multiple hats in your roles, but we don't have any legal representation on the stage right now, but how do you, I always am curious how you think about your relationship with the legal team. How has CLM changed that? Are there thoughts you have on how to partner best with your legal counterparts? Just an open question for either of you.
Sure. So I love my teammates. We're a small but mighty team, and I need to be responsive to them. It doesn't mean that I always say yes. Lawyers are creative people and can think of all kinds of things. My experience has been that sometimes when you're going through like a CLM implementation or just a project, they're going to have a lot of great ideas, but and then you're again eager to please, so you build this thing, and then it's this Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to build that trust, build that rapport, but to be able to say, hey, listen, let's build this at a kind of a slightly smaller scale, and then build off of that.
Yeah.
And I think that approach has served me well. It is really important to listen, and I think a lot of the features that, for example, I mean, that you guys have been talking about today, they're really directed at the legal team, so
right.
Getting their buy-in, doing change management with them is just as important as doing it with the entire organization.
Yeah. Mike, anything to add there?
I'm going to ask a question first. How many of you think your lawyers are techie? All right, cool, one hand. That's what I expected. So, with my legal ops team, one of the things that I try to tell them is, okay, first off, we're not order takers, right? We're not, and most of the lawyers don't actually know technology or how to build out a scalable platform. My background's in tech, so this is kind of what I did before this. It's interesting. We have to give lawyers what they need, not necessarily what they ask for or what they want. So sometimes you have to know how to interpret what they're asking for. They're highly visual creatures. So, we do a lot of prototyping in advance. We walk through and they're like, oh, wow, you could do that. I'm like, yes. And so you're not taking them like word for word exactly what they're asking, but you're building in kind of the sentiment of what they need holistically. Really, like I'd recommend for folks, as you partner with them, we did a lot of shadowing exercises. We sat in on negotiations with customers. We sat in on conversations with sales. We heard what the problems were, and it's like, oh, wow, we could actually do this in the background as we're, slacking back and forth and listening to these conversations. But like, try to get into their shoes a little bit and listen to what they do. And actually, you hear some fun stuff too, like, what do you mean a customer has to sign a contract? I'm like, really? You've been a sales guy for a while. Like, you should know that. So you learn a lot of fun tidbits, I think, which really help in the design process. Yeah. And I don't know about you, right? But like we took them through 4 or 5 different iterations of pilot. It's like, okay, we built phase 1. Now we're going to build phase 2. Let's iterate over and over again until we get to final and ready for launch.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would add is on attorneys and techies is there's definitely trepidation about AI, that it is coming for their jobs. And, and I've, again, seen a lot of great stuff here, and I'm going to be taking all this back. The way that I talk to my team about this is that it's not there to replace you, it's to accelerate the work that you're doing. And in explaining this, I kind of drew from a hiking nerd, national parks nerd example where there's, who knows Arc'teryx, like the outdoor clothing thing? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're partnering with somebody to build an exoskeleton for their pants. So, okay. So I found this example, and there's somebody in San Francisco. She tries to run up like the steepest hill you can imagine. It takes her like a minute and a half. She's winded. She's toast. She goes back down. She puts down the exoskeleton. She gets it done in like 20 seconds, and she's not breathing hard at all. And it's pretty remarkable. I mean, that's what technology can do. She still ran up the hill, but like she just did it a lot faster.
Yeah, but then I'm never going to lose the pounds.
I'm not going to talk about that. Yeah, but in any event, I think it's kind of how do we take them along in this journey. That's the important piece, and we got to get them comfortable with it. And I think you do have to think about resourcing. Yeah. Not just within your team, but how can you also leverage the resourcing of the rest of the company? Because AI is going to enable the business to do more. That's part of the automation, right? So, these are all things that we need to be thinking about.
Do you see, like, when you think about AI for your legal operations today, like, where's the next obvious thing that you would want to get some efficiency out of it? Like, I'm not really talking about ironclad features, but like, where do you see it could have the most value in how you run your business?
Sure. I mean, I think it's some of the use cases we've seen today, third-party paper, MSAs. Yeah. One that's pretty specific to us for clinical trials as we're embarking on global trials. We're going to be contracting across Europe, APAC, LATAM. In some cases, we have to do contracting in local language, some cases bilingually. So to the extent that AI can accelerate translations, we may still need to verify it, but again, it's kind of like the exoskeleton, right? Yeah. It helps you get there that much faster. Yeah. So
I like the exoskeleton. That's really good. Mike, any thoughts on it, how you could use AI?
I really want to use it for playbooking. It's like I want to be able to like build an LLM of all my contracts, and I want to say, hey, for my primary agreements, come back and give me all the deviations of LOL. Or give me all the deviations that I might include. And like nobody really cares about force majeure, but it's a fun one. On force majeure, what am I including? Is it pandemic? Is it endemic? What am I putting in from a language perspective? And then give me a differentiation if I'm buy side or sell side, because I actually want my force majeure clause different if I'm buying something than if I'm selling something. Mm-hmm. So if I'm selling, I want pandemic. If I'm buying, I want endemic. Or it might be backwards. Sorry, might got that backwards there.
The AI would know which one it is.
So I think AI's got a great opportunity for that because right now we've got to go back and we've got to cull all these deviations, and it's a lot harder. You go back and try to pull it from people's memory, but I have all the content. I just don't have a great extraction methodology for all of that. and then how does that differ to your point on third-party paper versus if it's on my paper from that language perspective? The LLM, I think, will be really big, getting to actually the natural language search across the whole corpus, which will really resonate with the attorneys. And even like scoring, like I would love for training our attorneys, like after they did a negotiation and it goes up to, the VP of commercial for sign off, is I want to like grade their contract against our standard. It's like, did you actually go through here? We should be able to use it as a learning tool, an educational tool, or even like my dream is to actually start knowing what's our risk tolerance, to be able to assign a score. Hey, 87% of the time, we're good to include a 2x LOL super cap on revenue. It's like, okay, that would be awesome because now we know we can start defining risk tolerance levels and say, cool, anything with a risk tolerance over 90%, go ahead. You've got approval.
Yeah.
And just go forward with it.
It's a great idea. One last question, and then we'll wrap up. If you could put a new feature in Ironclad today, you have a magic wand, and say, we're going to do, it now can do this. Do we have any product people in the room? I don't know if they're here. I always want them to hear this, but we'll relay it if they're not here. What would you see as the next? And we did a roadmap presentation this morning. We've heard a lot about good stuff, but what for you in particular stands out as something you'd really like to see?
Sure. So I'm gonna pile on a little bit here.
Okay. Yeah.
Because there was some feedback around insights. I think and it sounded like some of you may be taking data and manually downloading it and then processing it through a BI tool. That's what I'm doing because I think that the insights tool needs to do more. It needs to be more kind of multidimensional.
Yeah.
You could set up the chart, but if I could, within that same chart, filter based on the department or a period of time or a specific study, and then kind of all of the data changes, like it would in a Power BI tool, that's more interesting.
Right.
And I think somebody was talking about how like they're tracking things by month and by quarter, and like kind of, so that's an area where I think there's a lot of potential. I'll just put it out there. I've never seen a CLM company that has kind of built something like that within their platform. I mean, you guys have analytics, other have analytics, but I think that's an area that's ripe. And again, kind of towards building that trust, I've built those dashboards in Power BI, and they've helped me tremendously to communicate the story
to the business,
to our chief medical officer and to our head of clinical operations and other really key people, so that they're like, oh, okay, this is working.
Yeah,
this is great.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Thank you for that. That's really good feedback.
Yeah.
100% agree. Give me better insights. Give me better reporting. For me right now, I want AI metadata extraction post-execution. So yes, thank you. I see nods. It's like I can do it with Smart Import. I can do it at so many other layers of the product. Why can't I do it after I've executed an agreement and I'm about to put it in my repo?
Yeah.
It would save an amazing amount of time. We'll have better data integrity. Hopefully it'll have learning, get smarter as it goes along in that process. And then I don't have to take it out to a third party, or I don't have to go pay an ASLP to do some of this. It's already there. Just like put it in this other feature spot. That's what I really want.
Thank you for sharing. We want the feedback, and it's good to get it out there. So we've heard about exoskeletons. We've heard about asbestos testing, saving lives, legal things. But more than actually, there's some really good insights here in what you guys have shared. I just want to say thank you for participating here and sharing your thoughts. We're going to wrap up here, but any final thoughts you want to share with the team?
I mean, get your hands dirty. It's just so much you can do with these products. And I know they all have different features and capabilities, but be creative. Don't be afraid to be a little bit wild. Like, throw ideas around with different stakeholder groups. Feel free to like slough approvals off on other groups too. Like, legal doesn't have to approve everything. Like, only half the workflows in Ironclad, legal actually is even involved in, and we make other groups do it, right? So it's like, hey, we gave you the template. You do the approval. We can audit if we want. So it actually saves your legal team a lot of time if you start thinking about these other methods for involving teams besides the legal department.
Great.
So I'll have a thought that actually doesn't have anything to do with the system at all, but it's how you approach contracting before you even get to kind of building a workflow. And it's about kind of the amount of risk that you're willing to take on. I've been at some tables where we've talked about kind of the number of approvals and various things like that. At my last company, I think we started off in a spectrum where we had a very low tolerance for risk, and our contracting process was a function of that. And that was a function of the direction from our general counsel. As we got experience, we moved up that spectrum, and one of the last thing I did before I left and came to 4DMT was we actually removed legal approval altogether. We decided, the likelihood that one of these contracts is going to get litigated is super low.
Yeah.
And so what can we do to automate that and just take that administrative process out of your hands? That was the opposite end. That was super high tolerance for risk.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, very high.
Yeah.
So, I think that's something that it's agnostic to any system. This could apply to any other stuff that you're doing within legal ops. I think that's something really important to consider.
Yeah. Thanks so much. So these guys will be at the reception. Feel free to talk with them there and carry on the conversation. But thank you again. Let's give a round of applause.
Cool. Great. Thanks.
Leslie, I'm going to call Leslie back up on the stage.
All right,
Thank you, Eric.
thanks.
And we'll see you all soon. Thanks so much.